The dust never settled on Halen 9. It hung in the thin air like a red fog, making every breath taste like metal. Taehyun wiped his face with a torn sleeve and lifted another container of ore onto the transport cart. His muscles ached, but they always ached. 7 years of this work had changed his body in ways he didn't fully understand. Around him, dozens of other slaves worked in silence. Most were Velthans, tall, blue-skinned beings with large eyes that seemed too sad for this universe. Others were Murashi, their fish-like features struggling in the dry atmosphere. A few Krelix clicked and chirped to each other, their insect bodies better suited for this harsh labor than most. The Drexari overseers watched from elevated platforms. They were massive creatures twice the height of Taehyun, with bodies covered in crystal-like scales that caught the red light of the distant sun. Their eyes were cold and calculating. They carried weapons that could burn a hole through solid rock. Taehyun had learned not to look at them directly. Eye contact meant punishment. Speaking without permission meant worse. The first year had been the hardest. He had fought back then, resisted, tried to escape. The scars on his back reminded him of those failures. A horn blasted across the mining site. The work shift was ending. Taehyun dropped his tools and joined the slow march back to the holding facility. The slaves moved like ghosts, too tired to talk, too broken to dream of anything beyond the next meal and the next sleep period. In the communal sleeping area, Taehyun found his usual corner. The room held 200 beings, all pressed together on hard metal floors. There were no beds, no privacy, no comfort. Just survival. A presence touched his mind. It was gentle, like a whisper made of thought instead of sound. Taehyun had learned to recognize it. Hyrim, a Velthan female who worked in the sorting facility, had the gift of telepathy. She was one of the few beings who had shown him any kindness in this place. Her thoughts formed words in his mind. "You work too hard, human. The overseers notice you." Taehyun closed his eyes and thought his response, knowing she would hear. "I work the same as everyone." "No," her mental voice was sad. "You heal faster than others. You grow stronger while others grow weak. They watch you more each cycle." It was true. Taehyun had noticed it himself. Injuries that should have crippled him healed in days. Work that should have broken him only made him tougher. At first he thought it was luck. Now he wasn't sure. "There are whispers," Hyrim continued. "Stories that travel through the slave network. About your species. About why the Drexari keep humans separate." Taehyun's eyes opened. "What stories?" "That the Empire fears your kind. That something happened long ago. That humans are kept alone for a reason." Her thoughts felt uncertain. "I do not know if it is truth or legend, but the old ones say the Drexari have a word for your species in their tongue. It translates to sleeping monster." Before Taehyun could respond, the lights in the sleeping area changed to a harsh blue. An announcement crackled through the speakers in the guttural Drexari language, which Taehyun had learned to understand over the years. "Slave designation Human 7 Alpha. Report to Transport Bay immediately." The room fell silent. Every being turned to look at Taehyun. Being called out individually was never good. It meant special punishment, medical experiments, or worse. Taehyun stood slowly. His heart pounded, but he kept his face calm. He had learned that showing fear only made things worse. As he walked toward the door, he felt Hyrim's thoughts one more time. "Survive, human. There is something important about you. I feel it." 2 Drexari guards waited at the transport bay. They didn't speak, just pointed at a small cargo ship. Taehyun climbed inside. The ship lifted off immediately, leaving Halen 9 behind. Through the small window, Taehyun watched the labor moon shrink away. He had never left it since his capture. The ship was headed somewhere else, somewhere that made his stomach twist with worry. The journey took 3 days. Taehyun was given minimal food and water. He was not told where they were going or why. The guards ignored his questions. He spent the time trying to stay calm, trying not to think about what waited at the end of this trip. When the ship finally landed, Taehyun was pulled out into a massive hangar. The air here was different, cleaner, with a strange smell he couldn't identify. The gravity was stronger too, making his legs work harder to walk. The facility was enormous. White walls stretched in every direction, marked with Drexari symbols and strange equipment. This was no labor camp. This was something else. A Drexari approached, different from the others. This one wore a uniform with complex markings. Its crystalline scales had patterns that suggested high rank. When it spoke, its voice was cold and curious. Human 7 Alpha. I am Commander Vexthar, lead researcher of xenobiology. You have been selected for observation and study. Taehyun said nothing. He had learned that silence was often the safest response. Vexthar circled him slowly, studying him like a specimen. Your species is unique. Your cellular regeneration rates exceed normal parameters. Your physical adaptation to hostile environments shows remarkable efficiency. Your psychological resilience is abnormal. The commander stopped in front of him. You will remain here. You will undergo testing. You will provide data. If you cooperate, your existence will be tolerable. If you resist, it will be considerably less pleasant. 2 smaller Drixari guards took Taehyun by the arms and led him deep into the facility. They passed through corridors lined with laboratories and holding cells. Inside some cells, he could see other beings, other species, all looking miserable and afraid. Then they reached a section that made Taehyun's blood run cold. Through a thick glass window, he saw a large chamber filled with strange machines. In the center was a cryostasis pod, its surface covered in frost. The control panel beside it showed readings and data he couldn't understand, but he could see through the glass of the pod. Inside, frozen in suspended animation, was another human. A woman, perhaps in her 30s, her face peaceful in artificial sleep. She wore the remains of what looked like a military uniform. The guard noticed his staring. Another of your kind. Captured 15 cycles before you, studied, frozen, studied again. The commander is very interested in human specimens. Taehyun felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not just fear, not just anger. Something deeper. A need to understand, a need to act. They put him in a cell, bare and cold. As the door sealed shut, Taehyun sat against the wall and stared at his hands. Somewhere in this facility was another human. Somewhere in the galaxy was Earth, his home, which he had almost forgotten. And somewhere in the records of this place were answers. Answers about why the Drixari feared humans. Answers about what made them sleeping monsters. Answers about why he was still alive when so many others had died. Taehyun closed his eyes and made a promise to himself. He would survive. He would learn the truth. And somehow he would find a way to wake that frozen woman and get them both out of this nightmare. The dust of Howland 9 was behind him now. But ahead was something far more dangerous and far more important. The testing began on the second day. Taehyun was strapped to a medical table while machines scanned every part of his body. Commander Vexthar watched from behind protective glass, taking notes on a datapad. The procedures were painful but not unbearable. They took samples of his blood, his skin, even small pieces of muscle tissue. What bothered Taehyun more than the pain was the way Vexthar looked at him. Not with hatred or cruelty, but with fascination, like he was a puzzle to be solved. A mystery wrapped in flesh and bone. After each session, guards would return him to his cell. The cell was small with a single sleeping platform and basic sanitation. But there was one feature that interested Taehyun greatly. A small cleaning panel with basic controls. It was meant for maintenance purposes. But Taehyun had worked with technology for 7 years on Howland 9. He recognized the underlying system architecture. Over the next week, Taehyun played a careful game. He appeared cooperative during testing. He answered basic questions. He showed no resistance. All the while, he studied the facility's routine. Guard changes, meal deliveries, cleaning schedules. Every pattern was a potential weakness. At night, when the facility grew quiet, he worked on the cleaning panel. His fingers, made strong from years of labor, carefully pried open the cover. Inside were basic circuits connected to the facility's maintenance network. It wasn't much, but it was access. Taehyun had learned some computer skills before his capture, back when he was a researcher on a survey ship. Those memories felt like another lifetime, but the knowledge remained. Slowly, carefully, he began exploring the network, learning its structure, finding pathways that weren't well secured. On the 10th day, he found something that changed everything. A directory labeled Historical Archives First Contact Incidents. Inside were files about dozens of species, their first encounters with the Drixari, how they were conquered, how they were enslaved. And there, buried deep in the restricted section, was a file marked Species Human, Aborted Conquest, Classification, Apex Predator. Taehyun's hands shook as he accessed the file. The data was extensive: reports, video recordings, analysis documents, all from 50 years ago. The first report described Earth, a blue planet technologically developing, showing signs of space exploration. The Drixari Empire had sent a standard invasion fleet, 12 warships, more than enough to conquer a single planet. But something had gone wrong, terribly wrong. The video recordings showed battles unlike anything in Drexari experience. Human forces that should have been easily defeated fought with desperate creativity. They didn't follow expected military patterns. They improvised. They sacrificed. They learned. One recording showed a human ship, badly damaged and losing atmosphere, deliberately ramming a Drexari cruiser. Another showed human soldiers capturing Drexari weapons and within hours, not only using them but modifying them. A third showed a human commander, surrounded and outgunned, transmitting false data that led an entire Drexari squadron into an ambush. The analysis reports were even more disturbing. Drexari military scientists had studied the encounters, trying to understand what went wrong. Their conclusion was chilling. Human species demonstrates unprecedented adaptive capability. Learning curve exceeds all known species by factor of 7. Shows no psychological breaking point under stress. Individual units willing to sacrifice themselves for tactical advantage without hesitation. Most concerning, humans display pattern recognition and strategic innovation in real-time combat situations. Each engagement shows marked improvement in counter tactics. Recommendation: avoid further contact. Classify as extreme threat. The final report from the Drixari High Council was brief. Fleet casualties, total loss. Survivors 4. Decision: abort Earth invasion. Implement isolation protocol. Any humans found in space to be captured and contained. Never allow accumulation or organization. Never allow contact with homeworld. Classification: sleeping monster. Do not wake. Taehyun read it all 3 times, barely believing what he was seeing. Humanity had defeated the Drixari, not through superior technology, but through sheer stubborn refusal to lose. The Empire, which had conquered dozens of civilizations, had chosen to avoid Earth rather than risk another confrontation. And now he understood why he was kept isolated. Why that woman was kept frozen. The Drixari weren't studying humans to understand them better. They were studying humans to make sure they stayed contained. A sound at his cell door made Taehyun quickly disconnect from the network and close the panel. Guards entered, but they weren't alone. Commander Vexthar walked in behind them. Human 7 Alpha, you will accompany us to Laboratory 7. We are preparing to wake the other specimen. Taehyun's blood went cold. Why? Vexthar's crystalline face was unreadable. After 15 cycles of periodic study, we have learned much about human physiology. But we have learned nothing about human psychology. Nothing about what makes your species so dangerous. This specimen was military trained. She will provide new data. You mean you're going to torture her for information? We prefer the term psychological stress testing. She will be subjected to various scenarios designed to locate her breaking point. All humans have limits. We simply need to find them. The guards pulled Taehyun along. His mind raced. He couldn't let them torture this woman. He couldn't let them use her to find humanity's weaknesses. But what could he do? He was one unarmed slave in a facility full of guards. They entered Laboratory 7. It was a large space filled with monitoring equipment. In the center, technicians were preparing the cryopod for opening. Through the frosted glass, Taehyun could see the woman more clearly now. She looked strong, even in frozen sleep. Her face had scars, marks of old battles. Vexithar stood beside him. You will observe the awakening. Then you will both participate in cooperation tests. We wish to see how humans interact with their own kind after extended separation. The cryopod began its thawing sequence. Lights flickered across its surface. Inside, the woman's fingers twitched. Her eyes moved behind closed lids. The frost melted away, revealing details Taehyun hadn't seen before. A name tag on her uniform, partly torn but still readable. Litidayun. The pod opened with a hiss of releasing pressure. Taehyun's eyes snapped open and she immediately tried to sit up. Guards moved forward with restraints, but she was faster. Even disoriented from 15 years of cryosleep, her military training kicked in. She grabbed the nearest guard's weapon arm, twisted it in a way that made the creature howl, and had the weapon free in seconds. Alarms blared. More guards rushed in. Dayun fired the weapon, her aim uncertain but dangerous. She hit 2 guards before the weapon ran out of charge. Then she used it as a club, fighting with a fury that shocked everyone in the room. It took 8 guards to restrain her. Even then, she didn't stop struggling. Her eyes found Tae-hyun across the room, the only other human, and something passed between them. A recognition. A connection. Vexthar seemed pleased. Excellent. Immediate aggression upon waking. No fear response. No disorientation lasting more than seconds. This confirms the psychological profiles. He turned to his technicians. Begin preparation for Protocol 7. Full stress testing. I want to know exactly how much pressure a human mind can withstand before it breaks. As they dragged Dayun away, still fighting, still refusing to submit, Tae-hyun made a decision. He couldn't wait any longer. He couldn't plan for the perfect moment. If he was going to act, it had to be now. That night, back in his cell, Tae-hyun accessed the maintenance network again. This time he wasn't just gathering information. He was looking for weaknesses, for ways to disrupt the facility, for anything that could give them a chance. The Drexari thought they were studying humanity's limits. They were about to learn that humans don't have limits. They only have levels of motivation. And right now, Tae-hyun was very, very motivated. Tae-hyun spent 3 days mapping the facility's power grid through the maintenance network. Every building, every laboratory, every security system ran on energy from a central power plant. If he could disrupt that plant even for a few minutes, it might create enough chaos to reach Dayun. The problem was access. The power plant was in a restricted area, heavily guarded and monitored. Tae-hyun was a test subject with limited movement privileges. He needed help from someone who could move freely through the facility. The answer came during a routine cleaning shift. Tae-hyun had been assigned to help sanitize one of the laboratories. A Marashi worker was there, cleaning the equipment with practiced efficiency. The fish-like being's gills fluttered nervously as it worked, eyes constantly watching for overseers. Tae-hyun took a chance. You work throughout the facility? The Marashi's eyes went wide with fear. Slaves weren't supposed to talk without permission, but after a moment curiosity won over fear. Yes, maintenance, many areas. You are the human they speak of? One of them. There's another, a woman. They're torturing her. The Marashi's gills fluttered faster. Not my concern. Survival is concern. Speaking with you is dangerous. What's your name? Names are not... We do not. The being paused. Young Bae. My designation is Young Bae. Young Bae, listen to me. The Drexari fear humans for a reason. If I told you there was a chance to escape this place, would you take it? Young Bae's whole body trembled. Escape is impossible. Many try, all fail. All die, because they try alone. Tae-hyun moved closer, keeping his voice low. Help me reach the other human. Help us get to the impound bays where they keep captured ships. I promise you, if we succeed, humanity will not forget the enslaved species that helped us. We will come back for the others. Young Bae was silent for a long time. Finally, the Marashi spoke. You truly believe you can escape? From the homeworld? From the heart of the Empire? I've read the Drexari's own reports about humans. They're terrified of us. They're right to be. Over the next 2 days, Young Bae slowly warmed to the plan. The Marashi had access to infrastructure maps, security schedules, and most importantly, the power plant maintenance tunnels. Together, they refined the approach. During the facility-wide lockdown drill scheduled for the end of the week, Young Bae would trigger a malfunction in the power plant. In the chaos, Tae-hyun would reach Laboratory 7 where Dayun was being held. But on the 4th day, everything changed. New prisoners arrived at the facility. Tae-hyun watched through a window as guards escorted a group of captured beings. Most were common species, but one made his heart stop. A young human girl, maybe 16 years old, looking terrified but defiant. The guards processed her as Human 9 Beta. They took her to a holding cell near his own. That night, using the maintenance network, Tae-hyun managed to activate the communication panel in her cell. Hello? Can you hear me? The girl jumped, looking around frantically. Who's there? Is this another test? No, I'm human. Like you. My name is Tae-hyun. I'm in a nearby cell. Her voice cracked with emotion. You're real? There are other humans here? 2 of us. Soon to be 3. What's your name? Sua. They captured me from a transport ship. We were just civilians traveling between colonies. She started crying. Is this really happening? Is Earth going to find us? Taehyun felt his throat tighten. You said colonies, plural? Yes, Earth has been expanding, slowly, carefully. Dozens of colony worlds now. Thousands of ships. We've been building up our defenses because of the Drexery. We know about them, about what they did 50 years ago. This was both good news and terrifying news. Good because humanity had grown stronger. Terrifying because if the Drexari learned this, they might change their policy of avoiding Earth. They might decide that humanity had become too dangerous to ignore. Suwa, listen carefully. In 3 days we're escaping, all of us. I need you to be ready. I can't fight. I'm not a soldier. I'm just a student. You're human. That's enough. Trust me. The drill day arrived. Taehyun's hands were sweating as he waited for Young Bae's signal. The facility alarm would sound, indicating the start of the lockdown drill. Then Young Bae would trigger the power malfunction. Taehyun had maybe 5 minutes before backup systems kicked in. The alarm blared. Facility-wide lockdown initiated. Taehyun counted to 60, then accessed the maintenance panel one last time. He activated every disruption protocol he had programmed over the past week. Lights flickered. Doors malfunctioned. Security systems threw error messages, then the power died. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Taehyun's cell door lock disengaged. He pushed it open and ran. The facility erupted into chaos. Guards shouted. Alarms that still had battery backup screamed. Taehyun ran through corridors he had memorized from facility maps. He reached Sua's cell first. The door was jammed half open. He pulled it the rest of the way and found her pressed against the back wall. Come on. Now. She hesitated only a second, then followed. They ran together toward Laboratory 7. Guards appeared in the corridor ahead. Taehyun grabbed a fire suppression canister from the wall and threw it at them. It wasn't a weapon, but it bought seconds. They turned a corner and kept running. Laboratory 7's door was sealed, running on backup power. Taehyun frantically worked the manual override while Sua watched for guards. The door finally opened. Inside, Da-eun was strapped to a medical chair, electrodes attached to her head. Her eyes were open but unfocused. Whatever they had been doing to her had left her barely conscious. Taehyun rushed to release the restraints while Sua stood frozen, staring at the torture equipment. Help me, Taehyun shouted. Sua snapped out of it and together they freed Da-eun. The woman slumped forward and Taehyun caught her. Her eyes slowly focused on his face. Who? Her voice was hoarse. Human? Yes, we're getting out. Can you walk? Da-eun's military training, even damaged by torture, kicked in. She forced herself to stand using Taehyun for support. Ship. Need ship. Impound Bay. That's where we're going. Young Bae appeared at the door, gills fluttering in panic. Guards coming. Many guards. We must move now. They ran through the facility, a desperate group of 4 against an entire military installation. Da-eun grew stronger with each step, adrenaline pushing back the fog of torture. When they rounded a corner and found guards waiting, she didn't hesitate. She grabbed a medical tool from a passing cart and used it like a weapon, striking with precision that came from years of training. The guards hadn't expected real resistance. They were used to slaves who cowered and obeyed. Da-eun was neither. She moved like violence given form, taking down 2 guards before they could properly react. Taehyun grabbed a fallen weapon, his hands clumsy but determined. Even Sua, terrified as she was, picked up a piece of equipment and swung it when a guard got too close. They fought their way to the impound bays. Young Bae used maintenance access codes to open the massive doors. Inside were dozens of captured ships from various species, but Da-eun pointed at one specifically. There. The Taeguk. My ship. It was a human vessel, older model but still intact. They ran to it while alarms screamed throughout the facility. Da-eun's fingers flew over the access panel. The ship's AI, dormant for 15 years, flickered to life. Welcome back, Lieutenant. Initiating startup sequence. Behind them, guards poured into the impound bay. Commander Vexthar's voice boomed over the speakers. You cannot escape. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Da-eun looked at Taehyun, then at Young Bae, then at Sua. Everyone inside now. The ship's engines began to warm up. Guards fired weapons, but the ship's hull held. Vexthar screamed orders. More guards arrived. The bay doors began to close, trying to trap them inside. Da-eun pushed the engines to maximum. The ship lurched forward, barely squeezing through the closing doors. They exploded out into the open air of the Drexari homeworld, leaving chaos and alarms behind them. But as they climbed toward space, Taehyun looked at the sensors. Ships were launching. Lots of ships. The Drexari fleet was coming after them. Their escape had just begun. The Taeguk shook violently as it climbed through the atmosphere. Daeyeon sat in the pilot's chair, her hands moving across controls she hadn't touched in 15 years. Muscle memory and training fought against the fog of recent torture. Beside her, the ship's AI displayed multiple warnings. Hull integrity at 73%, main engine efficiency at 60%, weapon systems offline, shield generators charging but not yet operational. Taehyun strapped himself into a seat, helping Sua secure herself beside him. The girl was shaking, tears running down her face, but she was holding together. Young Bae clung to a support rail, gills fluttering rapidly in the unfamiliar atmosphere of the ship. "How many ships following us?" Daeyeon asked, her voice steady despite everything. The AI responded immediately, scanning. 8 Drexari patrol craft, 2 heavy cruisers. More launching from surface installations. Can we outrun them? Negative. Current engine efficiency insufficient. Recommendation: find alternative solution. Daeyeon laughed, a harsh sound that held no humor. Alternative solution, right. She looked at the star map. We need to reach neutral space. If we can get beyond Drexari territory, they might break off pursuit. Taehyun leaned forward. How far is that? 3 days at full speed, which we don't have. Daeyeon's fingers danced across the console. AI, access tactical database. I need every piece of information we gathered before my capture. Everything about Drexari military tactics, ship capabilities, everything. Accessing. Database intact. All pre-capture intelligence available. Young Bae spoke up, voice trembling. You plan to fight them? We cannot fight. They are too many. We don't have to fight them all, Daeyeon said. Just long enough to escape. AI, plot a course through the asteroid belt near the 4th planet. Dense field, lots of cover. Course plotted. Warning: navigation through that field at current speed is extremely dangerous. Dangerous for us. More dangerous for them. Daeyeon pushed the engines harder. The ship groaned but responded. Everyone hold on. The Drexari ships were closing fast. Weapons fire streaked past the Taeguk, coming closer with each shot. One blast connected and the whole ship shuddered. Alarms blared. Sua screamed. Then they entered the asteroid field. Suddenly space was full of tumbling rocks, some the size of small moons. Daeyeon weaved between them with skill that seemed impossible for someone who hadn't flown in 15 years. The pursuing ships had to slow down, their larger size making the navigation harder. But they were still coming. Still firing. One of the patrol craft got too close to an asteroid and clipped it. The ship spun out of control and crashed into another rock. 7 ships left. Shields at 40%, the AI reported. Next hit will likely cause critical damage. Taehyun stood up, moving to the weapons console. Can we fire back? Weapons are offline, Daeyeon said. No power to spare. We're running everything we have just to keep moving. Then we need a different plan. Taehyun studied the tactical display. His mind, sharpened by 7 years of survival, looked for patterns. The Drexari ships moved in formation, predictable and coordinated. Military precision. That was their strength. But also their weakness. Daeyeon, can you make them think we're more damaged than we are? She glanced at him. What are you thinking? They expect us to run. What if we do something they don't expect? Understanding dawned in her eyes. She smiled, and it was a dangerous expression. AI, cut all external lights. Vent some atmosphere from the cargo bay to make it look like hull breach. Then cut engines and let us drift. That will leave us vulnerable. Do it. The Taeguk went dark. From outside it would look dead, drifting helplessly among the asteroids. The pursuing ship slowed, approaching carefully. Through the view screen, Taehyun could see them getting closer. Wait, Daeyeon whispered. Wait. The Drexari ships surrounded them, weapons charged but not firing. They wanted the ship intact, wanted the prisoners alive for questioning. That was their mistake. Now, Daeyeon slammed the controls. The engines roared to full power. The Taeguk shot forward straight at the nearest patrol craft. The Drexari pilot, shocked by the sudden movement, tried to dodge. Too slow. The Taeguk clipped the patrol craft's wing, sending it spinning into an asteroid. 6 ships left. But now they were angry. Weapons fire filled space. Daeyeon pushed the ship into a steep dive, going deeper into the asteroid field where the bigger rocks were. A heavy cruiser tried to follow and scraped its hull badly against a massive asteroid. It fell back, leaking atmosphere, 5 ships, plus 1 damaged cruiser. They played this deadly game for an hour, using every trick Daun could think of and every insight Taehyun could offer. Young Bae helped by monitoring the maintenance systems, keeping the battered ship together with emergency repairs. Seohwa, despite her fear, watched the sensors and called out incoming threats. They were working together, adapting, learning, becoming more than the sum of their parts. The Drexari noticed. Commander Vexthar's voice came over the communication channel. Impressive. The reports about human adaptability were not exaggerated. But you cannot win. More ships are coming. Eventually you will make a mistake. Daeun opened the channel. Maybe, but we'll take some of you with us. Unnecessary. Surrender now. I will ensure your deaths are quick and painless. How about another offer? You let us go, and we promise not to tell the entire galaxy that your mighty empire is afraid of 3 humans and their friends. Silence. Then Vexthar spoke again, his voice colder. You do not understand. We are not afraid. We are cautious. There is a difference. Your species is dangerous but not invincible. You will be contained. The conversation was cut short when 2 more patrol craft emerged from behind a large asteroid. They had been waiting, hidden. Now they had the Taeguk trapped between them and the pursuing ships. Hold on, Daehyun shouted. She did something that made young Bae's gills stop fluttering entirely. She aimed the ship directly at one of the patrol craft and accelerated. You're going to ram them? Taehyun asked, gripping his seat. They'll move. What if they don't? Then we all die together. I'm okay with that. The Drexari ship held its position for 10 seconds, then 15. Then at the last possible moment it broke formation and dodged. The Taeguk shot through the gap. Behind them, the pursuing ships tried to follow but crashed into each other in the confusion. 2 ships collided, both severely damaged. 3 ships left, and the damaged cruiser. They broke free of the asteroid field. Open space stretched ahead. The Drexari ships were falling behind, too damaged to keep up the pursuit. For a moment it seemed like they might actually escape. Then the second heavy cruiser appeared directly in their path. It was massive, dwarfing the Taeguk. Its weapons were fully charged. No more tricks, Vexthar's voice said. No more running. Surrender or I will destroy you. Daehyun checked their systems. Shields failing. Engines overheating. Weapons still offline. No way to fight. No way to run. She looked at Taehyun, then at young Bae and Sua. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I thought we could make it. Taehyun shook his head. It's not over. We're not dead yet. Look at the odds. I've been looking at bad odds for 7 years. I'm still here. He turned to the communications console. Let me talk to him. Before Da-un could respond, Taehyun opened a channel. Commander Vexthar, I have a proposal. You are in no position to negotiate. I'm in the perfect position. You want to study humans, right? To understand what makes us dangerous? I'll give you a chance to learn firsthand. Single combat. Me against you. If I win, you let us go and recall any ships following us. If you win, we surrender peacefully. There was a long silence. Then surprisingly, Vexthar responded. You challenge me to honorable combat? A slave challenges a commander of the Empire? I challenge you to see if your fear of humans is justified. Another silence. Daehyun grabbed Taehyun's arm. What are you doing? You can't beat him in a fight. He's twice your size and trained in combat. Taehyun smiled. I've been a slave for 7 years. I've survived things that should have killed me. And I'm really, really angry. That counts for something. The channel crackled. I accept your challenge, Vexthar said. But not you, slave. You are weak from captivity. If humans truly wish to prove themselves, send the female, the soldier. She is the warrior among you. Let her fight for your freedom. All eyes turned to Daeun. She was still weak from torture, still recovering. But her eyes were clear and hard as diamond. She stood up. Tell him I accept. The asteroid designated as neutral ground was small and airless. Artificial gravity generators created a breathable atmosphere in a dome barely large enough for the combat. Daeun stood on one side wearing a borrowed pressure suit with the helmet removed. Across from her, Commander Vexthar towered, his crystalline scales gleaming under harsh lights. Taehyun watched from the Taeguk through a video feed. The duel was being broadcast across Drexari military channels. Vexthar wanted this. He wanted the Empire to see a human defeated, to prove they weren't the monsters the old reports claimed, to show that the fear was unwarranted. Young Bae stood beside Taehyun, gills fluttering nervously. She cannot win. Look at the size difference. Look at his armor. Maybe, Taehyun said quietly. But don't count her out yet. Suwa wiped tears from her face. This is my fault. If I hadn't panicked during the escape, if I had been stronger. You're 16 and you've been incredibly brave, Taehyun said. This isn't your fault. This is the Drixari's fault for thinking they could enslave people without consequences. The rules were simple. Hand-to-hand combat. 1 blade each. Fight until surrender or death. No interference. A Drixari official dropped his hand. The fight began. Vexthar moved fast despite his size. He lunged forward, blade aimed at Daeun's chest. She rolled aside, barely avoiding the strike. The blade cut through the metal floor where she had stood. That much force, that much power. One hit would be fatal. Daeun circled, keeping distance. Her body was weak from torture and cryosleep, but her mind was sharp. She studied Vexthar's movements. The way he pivoted, the way his crystalline armor plates shifted at the joints, looking for weaknesses. Vexthar struck again, faster this time. The blade caught Daeun's arm, cutting through the suit and drawing blood. She gasped but didn't cry out. She backed away, switching her blade to her other hand. You are skilled, Vexthar said. But skill is not enough against superior biology. He pressed the attack. Blow after blow rained down. Daeun deflected some, dodged others, but she was being driven back. Another cut opened on her leg. Then her shoulder. Blood stained her suit. The Drexari watching the broadcast made sounds of satisfaction. 5 minutes into the fight, Daeun fell to one knee. Vexthar raised his blade for the killing strike. Then Daeun moved, not away from the blade, but toward it. She rolled under Vexthar's arm, too close for him to bring his weapon to bear. Her blade flashed, striking at the joint between his armor plates at his elbow. The crystalline material cracked. Vexthar roared in pain and surprise. Daeun rolled away before he could grab her. Now she was breathing hard, bleeding from multiple wounds, but her eyes were focused. She had learned something important. The armor could be broken. First blood to you, Vexthar said, respect creeping into his voice. But it changes nothing. They clashed again. This time Daeun didn't try to match his strength. She used his strength against him. When he swung high, she ducked low. When he pushed forward, she redirected his momentum. She was smaller, weaker, but faster, more adaptable. 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. The fight dragged on. Both combatants were showing fatigue. Vexthar's movements became slightly slower. Daeun's defenses weakened. More cuts appeared on her body. Her suit was more red than its original color now. Aboard the Taeguk, Taehyun's knuckles were white from gripping the console. Come on, Daeun. Come on, Youngbei had stopped watching. The violence was too much. But Suha stared at the screen, eyes wide. She's learning, the young girl whispered. Look, she's learning his patterns, it was true. With each exchange, Daeun adjusted her tactics. She memorized how Vexthar preferred to strike, how he recovered after a miss, where his blind spots were. The human ability to recognize patterns to adapt in real time was manifesting before the entire Drexari military command. 20 minutes into the duel, Vexthar began to feel something he rarely experienced. Uncertainty. This human should have fallen 10 minutes ago, should have bled out, should have given up, but she kept coming, kept adapting, kept fighting with a determination that bordered on madness. Why do you not surrender? He demanded. You are defeated. Your body is breaking, Daeun smiled through bloody teeth. Because I'm human. We don't know how to quit. It's not in our programming. She feinted left, then struck right. Her blade found another joint, this one at Vexthar's knee. The commander stumbled. His armor, designed to be impenetrable, was showing multiple cracks now. All at the joints. All where Daeun had learned to target. Vexthar realized with growing horror that he was losing. Not because he was weaker, not because his technique was inferior, but because this human had spent 20 minutes learning how to defeat him, and now she was implementing that knowledge. The next exchange was faster, more desperate. Vexthar put all his remaining strength into a massive overhead strike. Daeun, instead of dodging, stepped forward into his reach. The blade passed over her head by inches. Her own blade struck upward into the vulnerable gap beneath his chin where the crystalline armor didn't fully cover. Vexthar froze. Daeun's blade was pressed against his throat, right against the neural cluster that controlled his entire body. One push and he would die. Yield, Daeun said quietly. The commander looked at her with something that might have been respect, or fear, or both. I yield. The silence across the Drexari channels was absolute. A human, battered and bleeding, had defeated a Drexari commander in honorable combat. The implications rippled through every ship, every station, every military installation that watched. Dayun pulled her blade back and collapsed. Taehyun rushed out with the others, carrying medical supplies. They reached her side as she lay on the asteroid's surface, barely conscious. "Did we win?" she asked weakly. "We won," Taehyun said, pressing bandages against her wounds. True to his word, Vexthar ordered the Drexari fleet to stand down. The heavy cruisers moved aside. The remaining patrol craft broke off pursuit. But before the Taeguk could leave, the AI spoke up. Incoming transmission. Multiple sources. Not Drexari. Taehyun accessed the communications. Messages were flooding in from all over the sector. From enslaved species on different worlds. From labor camps. From hidden settlements. All saying the same thing. "We saw the broadcast. Is it true? Did a human defeat the Drexari? Can you help us? Please, we have been slaves for so long." And there, buried among the desperate messages, was one that made Taehyun's heart stop. A transmission in Korean, from a human male named Dong-hyun. "I'm a prisoner at Communication Station 12. I've been here 6 years. I monitored everything. I enhanced your broadcast and sent it beyond Drexari space, toward Earth, toward other civilizations. Everyone is going to know what the Empire has done, and everyone is going to know that humans are out here fighting back." Dayun, despite her injuries, smiled. "Good, let them know. Let everyone know." 3 months passed. 3 months of slow travel through neutral space, gathering other escaped slaves. The Taeguk was joined by other ships, other species who had found the courage to flee after seeing the broadcast. They rescued Dong-hyun. They found other humans in various facilities, 4 more in total. The ragtag fleet grew. It became a symbol, proof that the Drexari could be resisted. And then, at the edge of known space, they detected a signal. A human signal. A massive ship, a survey vessel from Earth, investigating reports of unusual transmissions from this sector. The ship's captain, a man named Kiwoon, listened to their story with expressions ranging from shock to anger to determination. When they finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. 15 years ago, we detected the remains of the invasion fleet. We knew someone attacked Earth. We've been preparing ever since, building ships, training soldiers, waiting to see if they would come back." He looked at Daun, at Taehyun, at all the others. "Now we know the truth. About the Empire, about the slaves, about everything." Kiwoon activated his long-range communications. "I'm sending a message to Earth, full report. Recommendation for military response. The Drexari wanted to keep humanity asleep and contained, but we're awake now, and we're bringing friends." Dayun stood on the bridge of Kiwoon's ship weeks later, watching dozens of Earth vessels arrive through jump space. Warships, medical vessels, transports. Humanity had heard the call and answered with overwhelming force. Beside her stood Taehyun, Dong-hyun, Sua, and the others. Behind them, representatives from a dozen freed species waited, Young Bae and others who had chosen to come, to guide humanity to the places where their people still suffered. The fleet prepared to move into Drexari space. Not as conquerors. As liberators, Dayan thought about the journey. From frozen sleep to torture to freedom to this moment. She thought about what Vexthar had called humans. Sleeping monster. Maybe he was right. Maybe humanity was a monster. But if so, they were a monster that stood up for the weak, that refused to abandon those who suffered, that learned, adapted, and never ever gave up. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the first slave camp coordinates. The galaxy was about to change. The Drexari Empire's reign of fear was ending. And humanity, the species they tried so hard to contain, was finally awake and ready to show the galaxy what humans did best. They freed people. They stood up to bullies, and they never stopped fighting for what was right.